The unit I look at is Engineering Project Management, which is taught in undergraduate final year. We have 4 summative assessment tasks. Number 1, seminar in which group presentation takes place and carry 10% of the marks. Number 2, assignment in which every group will submit written report. It contains 45% of the marks. Number 3, individual tests or examination. 30% marks is assigned for this. Number 4, individual in-class assessment in terms of quiz, lab, or tutorial exercise. It contains 15% of the marks. The area of the assessment that is being considered. Firstly, insertion of flunking exam, as it leads to students' improvement. Secondly, to improve team effort by allocating marks for each person in the group can be introduced. Thirdly, formative feedback review information communicated to the learner that is intended to modify students' thinking for the purpose of improving learning. Therefore, I am planning to introduce formative feedback, which is bugs or misconception in engineering project management. Fourthly, I propose to improve rubric by introducing task-specific criteria instead of unit-specific only. Lastly, improving summative assessment, which is inclusion of case study. Flunking exam is good to introduce in the engineering project management course. Why flunking exam? A comprehensive of the final exam could take place at the beginning of the course. I think it's a good idea of pretesting to introduce the subject matter to the students. We can test whether students have viewed the lecture content in the canvas before starting the class. This type of questions would help students to imagine and figure out the lecture going to held. Therefore, the learning should not be teaching to the test, but learning to understand the pretest. How we can introduce flunking exam? Lecture will be preceded by a pretest. The content of the lecture will be pretested so that students can gauge what is going to cover in the lecture and they can lead their brain. And secondly, I believe question formation would be a challenge in this type of test. So pretest could be in the form of multiple choice questions. Marks allocation for each person in the group. Why? Total 55% marks is allocated for group works currently in my course, in which 10% for group seminar presentation and 45% for group assignment. My worry about marks allocation for each person in the group, because not every person could have the same marks, and to reduce careless attitude of the group members, and finally to reduce unauthentic burden on certain members in the group. How we could allocate marks for each person in the group. Firstly, a rubric can be developed for the group members. Group members can use the rubric to mark their peers. Secondly, discussion board can be assigned for the group and monitored closely. How we could allocate marks. Introducing formative feedback. Shadi introduces many different types of formative feedback. Many of them I haven't heard them before. Normally I use try again, elaborate, hints, cues, informative tutoring. I believe informative tutoring is the most effective one, as students look through their error and strategy on how to proceed to their tasks. Hints or cues are the most favorite to the students. I suppose as students get a guidance to go through their task, they like it most. I think we can use bugs or misconceptions in our formative assessment. Why we can use bugs or misconceptions in our formative assessment? Because of analysis and diagnosis of the error, we need to put feedback elaborately. Learner-specific error and misconception information can be achieved from this type of formative assessment. How we can use bugs or misconceptions in our formative assessment. We need to give feedback to the student what is wrong and why it is wrong in their response. We need to mention where students are going, how they are going, and where they can go. How? Improving rubric formation. Criteria need to be modified. In my subject area, there is unit-specific criteria only. Unit-specific criteria are worded exactly the same as the learning outcomes. Why improving rubric formation is required? There is some learning that may not be exactly outlined in number, concise word in the ILO. Hence, we are proposing task-specific criteria. How we can introduce task-specific criteria? Learning outcome to be specific for each task and provide more information about the qualities I am looking for. Example of learning outcome. Demonstrate and apply knowledge of concepts and principles related to resource labeling in the engineering project management. Unit-specific criteria are the same as mentioned in learning outcome, but the task-specific criteria such as demonstrate knowledge of the concept of resource allocation and apply it to resource labeling. Summative assessment. In this unit, engineering project management would like to reduce some marks from group assignment from 45% to 30%, and 15% would go for case study. Why I am going to interest case study? The advantage of case study is that it will increase authenticity as they are real world scenario. How we can insert case study? A bank of case studies can be developed considering in mind that it is impossible to have a range of case studies of exactly equal difficulties. Thank you. Thank you.